Alright, so in our video today I'll be demonstrating how I use StoryLucent to make active cinematic sequences, such as the one that you see here in the video that I'm playing. It's a video that I uploaded before. I'm just seeking through it. It's pretty much all composited and compiled there using the StoryLucent framework. It can be done in a matter of sequences where you can click on next, you can go backwards, forward, previous. You can change the flow of the entire story, put in random events or intelligent places where your reader can discover a lot of elements of the story. It's incredibly dynamic, and that's the point that I'm going for with the tool itself. And also it's going to have the ability for comic panels, different perspectives, and much more there. So at this time we'll be going through our video to introduce the tool for the very first time, built on Fungus, and how you can go about compositing a video from zero, from absolutely nothing in the scene, to a quick setup of animation and text in a matter of about 20 minutes here. So I'll go ahead and get started and pull up the Unity editor. Thank you for your time. Feel free to skip through the video or ask any questions. I'll be releasing a lot more. I try and be as detailed as possible, at the same time respect the timing on the video itself. This is going to be a high-level overview of the StoryLucent framework. It's built on top of Fungus, which is a awesome and amazing and highly potentially filled Unity editor tool that you can find on the Unity Asset Store. So to get started, I actually wanted to go ahead and demonstrate the workflow of StoryLucent framework. So I'm not going to explain too much in detail, but just kind of give a swift view of what can actually be done. I'm going to get started here. Looks like I already have the story bar added to the scene. This story bar can be added from the window option here at the top of Unity. I'll open up my story toolbar and just drag that into place. I usually love putting it over here in this corner under the hierarchy. To get started, StoryLucent is designed so that by the time you add in the framework, I'm going to click on that button, adds the framework. I'm going to add the story template. Story template is actually the story itself. You can add a whole bunch of story templates if you want. For this demonstration, I'm only going to have one story in place here. Now, from the time that you do this, it's going to be a lot simpler later on after I complete the development of the tool, but I'm going to link the story into the framework itself here. And now that I've done that from here and placed to here, I simply have to click on play, and there's going to be a playable story already in place. So it only takes a matter of like a minute or less to actually get things moving. So when I hit the next button here, everything plays in sequence. So I have the second introduction showing up there in text. And then you'll see just different events or different sequences of the story. So it has a beautiful sequence, a beautiful animation there of text that goes by. Huge shout out there to Inkle. This is something that you can get on GitHub, but I've incorporated into StoryLucent. So now that that's set, no harm done, we're going to edit this and put in our own sequence of stories with a few different globes or environments. So let's get started with the environments and the actual framework itself. Now I'm going to go ahead and expand the story template over here in the hierarchy. It's broken up into pieces just like a narrative story. The introduction, rising sequence, here you'll see below. And I've got the main sequence, that's where the climax happens of the story, and the outro. Now, what's really awesome about StoryLucent is I've got what's called stages, which I'll talk about later in the future, and random events, which happen at times that you designate in the story itself. So they're intelligent places to put in random events. Now I'm going to jump to the intro. Right now, the introduction, taking a look at the flow chart below here at the bottom, it has 3 introductions. So the yellow blocks is where all of the action takes place, at least for the introduction itself. Now, let me go ahead and say this. For the time being, I don't want 3 different introductions. So instead of destroying them or deleting them, I'm just going to unlink them. And that's what's really nice about StoryLucent. You can edit everything in a non-destructible way. I'm just going to go ahead and remove those links. There's one introduction. Let's get started here. So in my scene, I already actually have a few different environments set up. I call them globes. I'm going to drag my globes out into the scene here. I'm going to make sure that I turn off my auto generate for lighting off so my scene doesn't slow down. Now coming back to it here, I have one scene in place. I'm going to take a close look at it. I'm going to link this scene that I've created into the intro block. Over here in the upper right corner is where the command list is. You can set up a whole list of events to happen inside of this block below. I'm going to link this object over here to quick links, and you're going to see a new button show up. If I zoom out, it's probably easier to see it. You see the block there, the button, so that I can click on it at any time to pull up that associated block. Now I'm going to throw in the other events, or the not events, the other globes, the other environments into the scene. Let's go ahead and work with a total of maybe 4 different scenes here. Okay, great. So I have those 4 scenes set up. I'm going to go ahead and link them into the rising sequence here. I'm probably going to use the first 3 blocks to get that started. So let me go ahead and link the second globe here to this chapter. I'll jump to the next one and just start linking these environments here to the scene that I want it associated, or the chapter I want it associated with. So I'll link that in place, and I'll jump to my last globe here, and I'm going to make sure to connect that to the chapter 2 here. So now when I zoom out, you'll see that these scenes here, or these globes, these environments, are linked to their associated blocks. So I can always click on them and jump to those blocks rapidly. It's all about workflow. That's what I try to work on for StoryLucent. Now let's get started. I'm going to start with the intro block here, and I'm going to zoom in. Now I love to start with an obscured camera when introducing an animation. So I'm actually just going to get the camera all blocked here by this archway, and I'm going to start by going into the intro scene here, and I'm going to add a block. So there's a plus sign over here to add commands. There's actions that are associated with StoryLucent. We're going to do the move camera action here, and what's so great about it is I'm just going to set a starting location, move my camera, move it out, and I want it to kind of rotate around here to the front and zoom out, just so we can see everything, maybe at a low angle here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on set location right over here. Bingo. Pick a time. I want that to happen for I'm actually going to say 5 seconds to keep things a little brief. Now that that's set up for 5 seconds, let's go ahead and play the animation. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Hit play, and guess what? Very nice. I've got an animation going. Now I'll click on next a few times. Looks like there's some text scrolling across the screen. There's all sorts of unorganized mess happening right now. Let's speed up the process. I don't see anything else happening in the story. So I'm going to quickly run through the positioning of the camera for the other scenes. So I'm simply going to do that by jumping to my next scene here. I'll click on the chapter button. It takes me right into the command. I'm just going to start here from behind, maybe where the bricks are at. I'm going to add another camera command, and I'm simply going to set the starting location, move the camera over here, zoom out a bit, and position it right where I want it to. I like here, and I'm going to set the end location and also place this for 5 seconds. Great. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to my next scene or my next environment. I'm going to do a close-up from the very top, zoom into the water, get really close. Since I have the quick link button there, I'll click on it. We'll add another camera movement. Move camera, put into place over here on the right. I'll set a starting location, which is a close-up on the water. I already did, and I'll zoom way out and maybe twist it a little bit here. Zoom out, and I'll set my move to location right here. I'll have it do it for 5 seconds, and I'll move to my last scene here. Alright, and for my last scene, let's start at the steps. Probably see it through the trees from this angle. I'll go ahead and jump to my rising sequence, and there's multiple ways to get to it, as you see there, whether it's through the quick links or through the flow chart here. Let's add that move camera option, and I'm going to put this into place. Click this as the starting point and move my camera up top and zoom out quite far, and click for this to be my end location, and also have that for 5 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and get started now. I'm going to hit play and let's see what's happening in the actual sequence itself. So I hit the play button. My first scene brings in the text, and it should jump from one animation to the next. So in a matter of minutes, I have a few couple of animations in sequence, and this is what's the beauty of the StoryLucent framework. So in a matter of moments there, it's all about workflow, getting that story out. Now this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the basics of what StoryLucent can do. But now what I'm going to do is also introduce the screen fading and adjustments of the story on the fly. So I'm going to go ahead and pause everything here. Let's make things a little bit more interesting. I'm going to go ahead and jump to my intro block over here and start with that intro scene. Now what's really nice is, from a workflow perspective, if I wanted to, I can change the game view, and I can go back to my intro block and say, hey, you know what, I want to see where that camera starts. Over here I can click on show camera, so I can get an idea of where's the camera moving from and to. I'll come back to the scene though, and I really need a fade in, fade out. So I'm going to click on the plus sign, just add a screen fade. Now I want my screen to fade in from darkness, and I'll show you how I do that. I selected fade in. We're going to do that for 3 seconds. I'm going to put in a mask texture that I already have ready here in the lower left. I'm going to drag that over. So what happens here is there's going to be a fade in. I'm going to right click on this and copy it, paste it, and drag it to the bottom, and I want the screen to fade out when this is all done. So let's go ahead and play it, see what happens. Now because you know what, something's not working as expected. I didn't see that fade in. It's probably because the screen wasn't faded out to begin with. But it looks like that fade out works at the end, so great. Nothing else is happening because I didn't put any additional commands, so it looks like I'll have to set up a screen fading for the other blocks. Now I'm going to go ahead and start the camera. I'm going to click on the camera over here in the upper left and make sure I start the camera in a faded out position, so I'll drag it out and click the is faded option check mark. Now when I come back to the scene, I'm going to set up the screen fading throughout the whole animation quickly. I'm going to right click on this and copy it so it makes the workflow extremely easy. I'm going to go to my other blocks here and paste in the screen fade in, and then I'm going to duplicate this with the duplicate button, drag it here, fade in, fade out. So I'll switch that. I'll jump to my next chapter here and do the same thing. I'll paste, put in my fade in, duplicate it, bring it down, and make sure that I fade out. And in a matter of seconds, I've managed to complete a whole fade in between all of my story elements. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this and fade out. So let's see what we've got. I'm going to go ahead and play it now. Great. Starts with a fade out screen. It's going to fade in. Awesome. And I should be able to jump through some of the text that appears on the screen. Now it fades out. Story will fade in. Excellent. And in a matter of moments here, I have my story sequence now working in action here. There's still a bit of an unorganized mess. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, I know that for sure I want my text to show up while the screen is faded out. And so we're going to do that really quick and end the demonstration there of StoryLucent framework. So let me go ahead, stop what I already have here, because the fade in transitions are looking definitely nice. Alright, and so I'm going to go back to my introduction by clicking on the introduction in the upper left. I'll jump to that block, and all I'm simply going to do is move my screen fade option, or actually move the text flow. I'm going to move that up to happen in front of the screen fade. And I'm going to change its color because black on black text doesn't look too good. Maybe do a nice blue, aquamarine green or blue. Leave it there. And in fact, I'm going to do that for the other elements too of the story. I'm just going to drag the text flow and put it in front of the screen fade. So instantly that changes how the story feels and looks. I can't forget to also change the color. I'll pick some different colors for each one. Maybe a lime green here. I'll go back for my others, and I'm going through this quickly. Maybe do a red here. And for this one, let's do a nice light pink, purple. We're all set and done. I'm going to go ahead and play the sequence again, and let's see what type of feel I get. Grand. Text starts, fades out, and here is the story sequence. Now, what's really great about StoryLucent is that all of this is playing in sequence to a click of the next button. You can go forward, you can go backward by selecting previous, and you can control exactly how this is done and change this on the fly. Now, if at any point in time perhaps I'd like to switch around my scenes or add a new introduction, that can definitely be added. For example, I want this scene right here, which has the red text, I want that to show up in front of one of my other scenes. So I'm going to switch that around here in just a moment. Let's pause that. I'm going to go to my chapter 1 scene here, and I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I want the scene to start with chapter 1, and I'm moving some things around here, and I want the next chapter to be the first. So I switch that around. It's hard to actually explain what I'm doing here until you get familiar with the tool itself to an extent. But its start sequence is definitely going to be, or its previous sequence will now be chapter 1. And the next sequence I'm going to make chapter 2. So it switches those around. And the same thing I do for the chapter 2 sequence. I make its previous scene the first chapter. And already I've turned that around. So when I play my sequence here, I can simply have the introduction happen as we expected. And when it's done, instead of going to that first scene with the tree, it's going to go to the scene with red text and the well. So in a matter of moments there, we've done that. Now, StoryLucent supports timeline. It supports a whole bunch of different features. And the workflow of putting all of these different components, animations, and setups is what makes StoryLucent incredible to work with from a production standpoint, from a workflow standpoint. I'll be going over a lot more information later about what the tool does. This is only the tip of the iceberg. My name is Anselmo. I'm a part of the StoryLucent team, which consists of only myself. Thank you again for your time, and please look forward to seeing more information about StoryLucent in the coming weeks and months. Thank you again. Bye.